Chords, not just for guitar players anymore. Metal Bass Monday. So welcome to the first one of the new year. If you're enjoying the content or you're just jumping on the new journey for the new year, always appreciate it if you like, subscribe, share. Thank you very much. The button's down there. Remember to hit that bell so that you actually do get the updates. And if you are so inclined and want the additional content and other things that I'll be sharing here on my Patreon channels, Patreon and Subscribestar links down there, cool stuff there, and I've got some cool new live stream and a couple other things coming up in the next 2 weeks. So those will be fun. Hope to see you there. So before we dive into chords, a number of you have shown some interest in some of the weird hacks I do because I can't help it. I'm always messing with my basses. I always have to customize everything all to hell. And I try and make everything really individual. I think once you've developed your own sound or have your own ideas, it's kind of hard to buy something directly off the shelf that exactly meets your needs. Some people do. And if you do, blessings upon you, sir. Because I have no idea what that feels like. I have fantastic basses and things that I love, but I always need to kind of bend it and Rodneyfy it in some way. So I decided on a couple of my 4 strings that I haven't taken out in a bit, I wanted to mess with an idea, and it's actually turned out really well, so I'm going to show it to you here. And I know what you're thinking. Is he really going to shove 3 pickups in a bass? He's shoving 3 pickups in his bass. So I have 2 4-string Hellraisers from Schecter, and it's one like this, one with a vintage burst. Great basses. But I kind of wanted to experiment, and obviously that's what I've done here. I'm still wiring up the controls and everything, but what I've done is I've added this center pickup in the middle to give me a couple of options that I really think are going to come in handy. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I'm a big fan of P-style pickups. And that's what's inside of these 2 soap bar pickups, are 2 Ps hidden under the soap bar kind of thing. And my second favorite is a J setup, very kind of Spectre-ish sound. The reason I added this one is because I like a P and J combo, but the closer the J pickup gets to the bridge, the less I like it. It gets very tinny, like if you look on, say, a Spectre or something, which, I've always loved that sound, the J bar tends to sit about here, right, I guess at the front of this casing. And I went, well, if I like it that far forward, and I've got a double P bass, why not set one in the middle with the bar here at the bottom, so it's actually moved even a little bit further, so I get a very throaty J, or almost a J in a Music Man type of set, and it's sounding really interesting. It's, again, that kind of classic PJ tone, but with a bit more thickness at mid-range to it, because it's been moved to the center. And it's a good second thing to have. So I'm popping in some switches to be able to go in between them and turn the active preamp on and off. But I think it looks pretty sweet too. So 2 basses like this, and I'll be showing those off when they're done. But that's my newest hack on customizing and Rodneyfying the basses. All right, so what we're going to do here is basically cover everything you need to know about structuring and getting chords in some kind of usable thing. What approaches are going to work best for bass, and we'll cover it from a couple different angles. But to start from the beginning, The stuff really isn't that complicated if you follow it, a couple basic formulas. Now, the biggest thing that I see with a lot of bassists is because they don't work with chords that much, it becomes this mystery area to them where they just kind of don't know where to start or how it can be used. So to get the absolute basics down, there's two terminologies you need to understand. One is the word chord, which means, multiple notes played together in a succession. And then arpeggio, which is the notes of a chord played individually, not together. So, simple ideas, that's really all it is. Now, the first stumbling block comes to, how do I know what chord I can play? Well, here's how to figure out the basics on it. So, the first thing to figure out for most people is going to be, what notes make up the chord for the scale that I'm in? And that's where a lot of the mystery comes in for bassists. And we're going to go through this principle real quick because some may know it, some may not. But let's say we're going to take a minor scale starting on the 3rd fret here, and that's going to look like this. 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 6, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. Okay, we're probably pretty familiar with that. So then the question becomes, well, how do I know what notes out of that scale make up the right chord for that scale? It's pretty complicated, so stick with me here. You ready? Start with the root and just play every other note. That's it. That's all you really need to do to figure out the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, all the way up through the extension. So if I were to take that pattern, I would just go like this. That's it. I'm playing the first note, skip the second, play the third note, skip the fourth note, play the fifth note, skip the sixth note, play the seventh. Now, that's going to be the basics of how this chord is formulated. So let's look at 2 or 3 different ways just to get you started with chords that you can start using them and have a couple of touchstones to where you can start working with different ideas. For a lot of players, what you're going to run into is when they do chords, they limit it to the top 2 strings, maybe adding the third one down. A lot of... kind of keeping in this area, moving up to the top end of the neck. Nothing wrong with that. Another way of using it is, I've seen a lot of times, and what could be a cool sound, is using pivots of creating just 2-note double stops with, say, an open string type of idea, like a... That can be an interesting thing to, just kind of toss in and, fills up a lot of space. But we really want to be conscious of the idea that the lower you go with notes and the lower in range, the further the intervals have to be away from each other, because if you try and play tight intervals down here, not so good. You can get away with it up here. That's fine. But the lower you go in register, the further away you want to start putting the intervals. So something you could do with that is, let's say we move up to the top of the neck. Try just skipping the A string and adding like 2-note chords on top along with one on the bottom. So keeping that separation will help keep things from cluttering up. I find that's a reason why a lot of bassists avoid it, is they try chords in the normal range that they're used to playing most of your work down in here, and it sounds like garbage, so they don't try it much, or they only do things right around here, and they don't explore larger ideas. Can be a really cool sound if you play something here and then jump, again, across that string, giving yourself a little bit more to work with and not cluttering up that bottom end. So you could almost think of it like piano, where you have one low bass note and then maybe a chord on top. You're kind of imitating the piano's methodology on it. So that's one way of separating things. Another thing is, and this is something I do a lot, and I really encourage you to start doing, to start coming up with chord melody or things. And that is randomly, before you try and explain what the chord is or try and figure it out, just do small hand movements to try and create new chords out of things. So let's say we take that minor pattern that we had and play it at the 12th fret this time. Okay? And let's start with a chord. We'll do 12 here, 14 here, and 16 here. So we'll get... Now just look at the scale and see where else can I plant my fingers in 3-note combinations from there and start creating chord melodies. There's really no rules to it. Every type of conjunction is going to be a chord of some type. So just start coming up with ones and use your ear as your guide. So say... Just see what's available underneath your hand and start moving it around. I know I have these notes. So I could do, let's say I'm going to hold down these two and try this. So let's try something else. Not bad. What other combination can I fit it with? So just by picturing your scale, planning your hand on different intervals, and seeing what you come up with. It's a simple idea. So if you follow that principle as you're moving down the neck and say, jump a string once you get down here. So if you kind of adjust your thinking and the way you're forming the chords as you move into lower registers to give more space, you'll keep it from just kind of crapping out on you and just turning to mush. In a lot of ways, there's really no rules with it. It's just you have to be conscious of what's going on with the guitar and make sure that the basis of kind of sonic reference you're using is the same one. If they're playing off of one scale, make sure you're writing chords around that same scale, especially at high-speed tempos. Trying to be a little too adventurous can end up badly. Guitar can get away with that a lot more than we can because, again, they're higher in range, so their chords aren't going to get as cluttered and they can add out notes here and there, and you can get away with them too. Obviously, you look at a lot of jazz players that do this type of thing, but you have to be ready for some really clashing and really heavily dissonant sounds. If you're trying to stay relatively inside the tonal center, all you have to do is, again, lay your hand into different things that you can see scale-wise. And the reason I really like kind of using this approach is it encourages you to extend your scale knowledge up and down the neck. If I want to do chords up the neck and go... I have to know what scale I'm playing in and be able to visualize it. I have to see... each hand position as I go up. So you learn a lot by doing that one thing. I have to know my scale. So you get a lot of benefit by working with chords and trying to stay inside the same key signature because you get the benefit of learning your scales and being able to picture them up and down each string, as well as getting more versed in how to play multiple notes at the same time and also visualize multiple strings at the same time. Because if I go here, I can also see this because I'm having to visualize all the way up and down the neck. So really, chords aren't that daunting an idea. If you just follow those couple basic principles, understand how they're kind of put together out of each scale, and then also understanding there's really no rules. You can stretch if you want to, be careful on it because, again, it's going to get dissonant. But if you can see the notes in the scale, no matter how you lay down your fingers on them, there's some way of understanding what kind of chord it is. It may be one of these bizarre, flat six sus chords, or there's always an explanation and some chord name that you can come up with to kind of justify with what you're doing. Believe me, jazz has been doing that a long time. So investigate some of this stuff, try it out for yourself, and do you know any metal bass players who actually use a lot of chords or do some interesting stuff with it? I don't hear that many anymore outside of solo pieces. Inside of songs, I don't hear it, so if you have any references, I'd love to hear it. Hit me up with those down below in the comments, and I'd love to share some references and hear some metal bass players that actually do use chords. It can be intimidating, but once you get it down and you understand how to drop it in and when to drop it in, it can be very cool and not that hard. So give it a shot. That's going to wrap it up for this one. I hope your new year is kicking off well. I hate to say resolutions, but I hope just this turn of the calendar is helping you get a fresh start on some things and maybe try a new path and clear out some old stuff that doesn't need to be there anymore. The improvement's always worth it. Practice hard, have fun with what you're doing, and as always, I look forward to another year of hanging with you guys on the channel. It's been a lot of fun. So I will see you on the next one.